UConn Nation, can Jayden Ross make the sophomore leap? You're locked on UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Little housekeeping, my YouTube support has been amazing. I'd love to have all of my subscribers download the audio version wherever you get your podcasts. It's equally as important for those of us for helping the channel and for helping the Locked On UConn audience grow. So if you can do me two quick favors, you can see that little ticker at the bottom of your screen. Love the podcast. Subscribe now. Subscribe on YouTube. Then head over to Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that follow button. This way you'll never miss a moment of Locked On UConn. I can't tell you how much that support means to me. Good reviews trigger referrals for similar shows. We can find some more people that are interested in more UConn content, but don't know where to find us. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Jayden Ross. He's been talked about by Dan Hurley a lot, either in press conferences, that NBA scouts always come in and say, hey, who's that? We haven't seen him on the court. And he's been a highly touted prospect who made headlines during his high school career, known for his impressive skill set, versatility. He's got length, 6'7", 6'10" wingspan. He was heavily recruited by top teams, but committed to UConn as part of that Fab Five recruiting class that is still with us, minus Stefan Castle. His high school highlights were, at St. James School in Maryland, where he established himself as a versatile and dynamic player. Like I said, standing at 6'7" and a wingspan of 6'10", Ross's physical attributes combined with his skill set made him a standout. He averaged impressive numbers in points, rebounds, and assists, showcasing his ability to impact the game in multiple ways. Ross consistently put up high-scoring numbers, demonstrating his ability to shoot from beyond the arc, to drive to the basket, and create his own shot. That is the quintessential Dan Hurley player. He wants positional versatility, but he also wants a player that can shoot from three, has the mid-range game, has the ability to finish at the rim with contact. He is a rebounding machine, at least he was in high school. His length and athleticism allowed him to be a force on the boards, often leading his team in rebounds. That remains to be seen at UConn. His defense is what I think sets him apart. He is a great on-ball defender. From everything that I've read about him, everything that people talk about with him in practice. Because again, when we're talking about players like Jayden Ross, Solo Ball, Yusuf Singari, we have to project and we have to think about what they're going to be, not what they are right now. So he could guard multiple positions effectively, positional versatility. You've heard me say that a million times, as well as Dan Hurley. He has an ability to block shots. He's probably not as versatile as Jalen Stewart, but he's close. Disrupting passing lanes, he can make key defensive. He was a key defensive player at St. James High School. His recruitment process was pretty wide open. Obviously UConn was at the front of it. Maryland checked in, Virginia Tech, Georgetown. But ultimately it was UConn's strong basketball tradition, the opportunity to develop under Coach Hurley and play a significant role in this decision. Ross was committed to UConn, citing the program's winning culture, the coaching staff's vision for his development, and the chance to compete at a high level. Now, let's pause there for a second. All of that is true. And I want nothing more than all of these guys to succeed. But sometimes when you are on a team as talented as UConn, and this UConn team is going to be very talented next year, there could be a time where he starts to doubt himself. And I hope that's not the case, because he has all of the ability, all of the talent, and all of the drive to be a fantastic, fantastic UConn Husky. So he's got a great relationship with Coach Hurley and the coaching staff. They presented a clear developmental plan for Ross, emphasizing his potential to grow within their program and in their system. So I feel like he really feels as if this is his year. The history of success UConn's had with wings, the reputation of a breeding ground for NBA talent, that was a major draw. And it's why I feel like he stayed this year to kind of test it versus transferring where he could probably catch on and start someplace else. So he is still developing his skills and could compete for championships. He already is a national champion. I think that's the one thing that I have a hard time conveying and I really want people to understand, all of the players that stuck around that were key contributors to UConn, because let's face it, even if you weren't a contributor on the court during, let's say, the Final Four or against Alabama or Purdue, you're a part of this team. You play a role. You practice. There's nothing better than having a deep team where essentially your second team is as good as an NCAA tournament team. If you put UConn's second team right now of Hassan Diarra, this is last year's team, Hassan Diarra, Solo Ball, Jaden Stewart, Jayden Ross, and Yusuf Singari, and they all played just 30 minutes a game, and you put them at another team, that's an NCAA tournament team. I have no doubt about it in my mind. That's how good this UConn team is. So he has an opportunity to contribute. He already has, but could play some significant minutes. He could not. That's the expectation. He's got a great offensive skill set. He can create his own shot. Like we talked about, he has offensive versatility. He hasn't really shown his shooting stroke, but it's there. He is a part of a UConn team. I've gotten into some arguments on YouTube lately. If you've seen it and you think I'm being rude for whatever reason, I think it's because I get frustrated that people misinterpret what I'm saying. And so let me be clear. Jayden Ross is a fantastic player. Is he going to show that on the court when he's given the opportunity? I don't know. I hope he does. I heard he's a great kid. Dave Borges came on the show and said that he knows that his time is now. Sometimes when you have your opportunity and you're knocking on the door, you kick it down and you step in and you are the guy that they want. So Jalen Stewart did that last year when Alex Karaban, I don't know if he got in foul, I forget if he got in foul trouble, but he took over for Alex in the Big East tournament final and hit 3 straight threes. That was huge. There's high expectations for him. So Jaden has that same opportunity coming up. I don't think they're giving up on him by any shape of the imagination just because they brought in guys. Ross, he's demonstrated a really high basketball IQ, making smart decisions in practice and on the court, understanding the flow of the game. That's huge for Dan Hurley. And this will be essential as he transitions to his sophomore year. You know, like what that leap is going to look like. His awareness, his ability to read the game, to be that brain center, that ability to process information faster and make plays on both ends of the floor. So his role on the team is, honestly, we don't know yet. I really do feel like he could be the second or third guy off the bench, or he could seriously not play. That's how good this team is. Is Coach Hurley, he hasn't divulged this, is he going to be an 8 or 9 person rotation, or is he going to go 10 or 11 deep? If he goes 10 or 11 deep, Jayden Ross is going to play 10, 15 minutes a game easily. But if they go in a different direction and they have that same rotation as last year and the year before, although in 23 they did technically go 10 deep, so it really will depend on the growth and improvement in the offseason. So I know he's working hard. Everyone talks about his training. He's got significant progress in his process. So I'm sure he's putting in extra hours at the gym, working on his shooting and ball handling and defensive drills. So I feel really good about Jayden Ross, and I feel like he has an opportunity because he has the leadership and tangibles that we're looking for. So like we talked about, he's poised to be a big player. However, with the addition of top-tier talents, Liam McNeely, Aiden Mahaney, along with the emergence of freshman Isaiah Abraham, who's looked really great in practice, Jaden will need to impress to earn minutes early. And honestly, he's the type of player that is going to need those type of minutes because he's not a set shooting player where you can kind of pop him in and he can give you 10 or 12 points because he's just that good a shooter. Maybe he's working on that. We'll see. I hope he is. While it's still early, the coaching staff thinks highly of Ross and the fans are eager to see him succeed. I, for one, am 100% looking forward to it. When we return, we're going to talk about who does Jayden Ross remind us of in UConn history and in recent history in college basketball. Coming up after this. Hey, UConn fans, summer is perfect for catching a Major League Baseball game, and I love the ballpark. One of the best memories is a walk-off home run that I saw, I believe, in 1990 with Don Mattingly. And sorry, Red Sox fans, that's who my guy was. Game Time is an authorized Major League Baseball ticket marketplace that makes getting tickets easy. Prices on the Game Time app usually go down as the game gets closer. Perfect for last-minute plans. I found amazing deals on Game Time for Major League Baseball games like Yankees versus Red Sox, and even some Mets games. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, and they're all in pricing means no surprise fees. Plus, With flash deals and zone deals, you can save up to 60% on the last-minute deals. Check out Game Time for easy, convenient ticket buying and great deals. Download the app and make the unforgettable memories at the ballpark. Hey, everyone. It's Mark Zanetto from Locked On UConn. With a new baby girl on the way, or about a month and a half away, I'm already preparing for these sleepless nights and busy days ahead. That's why I need the convenience of Factor's no prep, no mess meals. They allow me to focus on what's important, getting sleep and spending time with my family. Warmer, sunnier days are calling. Fuel up for them with Factor's chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals. Whether you're looking for to stay calorie smart, increase protein plus, or stick to keto, Factor has you covered. Their fresh, never frozen meals are ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy your life gets, you'll always have time for nutritious, great tasting food. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you always have new flavors to explore. Crush your wellness goals this summer with dietitian-approved meals you can trust. From breakfast to dessert, stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. Treat yourself to restaurant-quality meals featuring premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. Sounds great. Keep kitchen time to a minimum. No shopping, no prep, cooking, or cleaning up. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege for 50% off your first box. Make your life easier and your meals delicious with Factor. You're back on Locked On UConn. Who in UConn history and in college basketball history over the last 5 years does Jayden Ross remind us of? On the aspirational side and just on the measurables, length, maybe his ability to shoot, his defensive capabilities, his ability to potentially be this type of player. There's two players in UConn history, and maybe as I say this, you can think of who he reminds you of. The first one is Jeremy Lamb. Same type of body, 6'7", long. Lamb was a dynamic scorer with a strong defensive game. You had to be a strong defensive player if you were a Jim Calhoun guy, and he was. Ross's scoring ability and defensive potential draw comparisons to Lamb right out of the gates. And I think that could be aspirational to the respect of some of the older fans who remember Jeremy Lamb as an instrumental figure in UConn's 2011 national championship run. And let's be honest, I talked about this last segment. Jayden Ross was instrumental in UConn winning a 2023 national championship. Not in the minutes he played, but in the role he played as a practice player, as a teammate, as someone who didn't complain he wasn't getting minutes, all of that. So anybody that I talk about, whether it's him, whether it's Yusuf Singari, whether it's Solo Ball, Jalen Stort, those guys all deserve their flowers for being adults at an age of 18, 19, 20. So that to me is worth its, worth its weight in gold. The other one, and this is more aspirational, and I think Jaden's a better shooter, is Andre Jackson. Again, 6'7". I think Jaden's not as freakish of an athlete, but he had the versatility, athleticism, very similar, defensive prowess in terms of his length, his ability to get his hands in the passing lanes. Jackson obviously contributed to UConn's 2023 and before that national championship, his ability to guard multiple positions. And it wouldn't surprise me if Jaden and others that aren't going to get a ton of run this year, at least projected wise, are more defensive specialists and stoppers during this season to come in and say, listen, we can put a 6'7" athletic guy on a 6'1" point guard and shut him down. Similar to what Stephon Castle did last year to Mark Sears and others and the boys in Purdue. But that's a theory I have. We'll see if that comes true. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on your YouTubes or on YouTube or your free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. If I say your YouTubes again, I'm going to feel like I'm 175 years old, but that's okay. I think some of the other guys that he reminds me of in terms of like their skill sets and maybe really hasn't met this full potential yet, but he kind of reminds me a little bit of like a younger DeAndre Hunter. Like when DeAndre was at Virginia and then it obviously ended up getting drafted number 4 overall. Similar scoring ability, similar versatility. Both players are known for both their impact on both ends of the floor. I think Matthias Thibault from Washington, he got drafted. Again, these like bulls of a defensive stoppers. Thibault was a 2-time Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. Sad the Pac-12 doesn't exist anymore, but that's the type of player I feel like Jayden Ross can become. Tyrese Halliburton is a little more aspirational. He obviously is on Team USA right now. I think I saw him make like 3 straight threes today after not playing, but he had an ability to play multiple positions. He's more of a point guard, but he was at Iowa State. His body type, 6'7", 6'10" wingspan is exactly what NBA teams drool about. And it's what Dan Hurley wants. Most of them, think about it, all of his players. All his wings are 6'7", 6'8", 6'9". All of his guards, with the exception of 2 short guys this year in Ahmad Noel and Hassan Diarra, are 6'3" and above. So they have a pattern. They have a type. So Jayden Ross' combination of size, versatility, and skill set makes him comparable to several of these standout players, both in UConn history and recent college basketball history. We talked about Andre Jackson, Jeremy Lamb, Tyrese Halliburton, maybe DeAndre Hunter, Matthias Thibault. I hope Jayden Ross continues to develop. He has an opportunity to make a significant impact at UConn, and I don't want anyone to think if I call one player really good that I think another person isn't very good. I think they're all going to contribute in their own way, and unfortunately, it's not JV basketball. Not everyone's going to play. The best players play. So hopefully Jaden can carve out his own legacy among those notable comparisons, and we're going to go back in history and talk about one of the best games in UConn history that didn't result in a national championship, but may have been even bigger of a building block for things to come. Coming up after this. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S.-based customers. Okay. Starting a trend, talking about a player, talking about whose comparisons are, and talking about some games from our past. The game I'm talking about today are for us old heads, the 1989-90 season. If you haven't listened to the Dream Season pod yet, what are you doing? Because this game that we're about to talk about was a turning point for UConn. It was a victory that was a defining moment for the Huskies, signaling their arrival as a formidable force in college basketball, beating a powerhouse known as the Georgetown Hoyas. Thought I had the date here. I believe it was January 30th, 1990 at the Hartford Civic Center. It was a boost in confidence. The biggest win, I believe, to date in UConn history. NBA stars Alonzo Mourning, a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, and Dikembe Mutombo. It just was a huge statement. Clear indication that UConn could compete with and defeat the best teams in the nation, and particularly in the Big East, and that they had arrived not just as to try to win the 8-9 game, but to be a major player. It gave them program legitimacy. And for head coach Jim Calhoun, this game was a validation of his efforts of the building of a competitive program at UConn. The victory really helped in solidifying his vision and gaining the trust of recruits and fans alike. And I I believe this is where, I could be wrong, could have been earlier in the year, but Husky Mania really was a thing. There were shirts, there were, I think Bill Raftery used to say that. But again, I'm not going to do it justice just by talking about it. Go watch the Dream Season pod, listen to it. But this is part of the reason why Matt got me so excited about thinking back at that time as a kid, watching this stuff. This 89-90 season, it was just so incredible. Georgetown was kind of the big bad wolf, and we really had no business in the past competing with them. But with this team, this success that we had, that it was like a foundation for future achievement. And that included multiple Big East titles and national championships. This game remains, as for me, a cherished memory as a UConn fan, and really symbolized the program's rise to prominence for me. They won that game 70-65. Chris Smith, the incomparable Chris Smith, the head coach of Stars Azores, had 20 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. He was, I believe, I didn't put his 3-point percentage, but had a big game. Scott Burrell of The Last Dance, 12 points, 5 rebounds. I believe Scott's the coach at a Division II school, Southern Connecticut, maybe? I'm not sure. I forget the name of it. I'll try to find that before the episode is over. My favorite player of all time, the Dove Hennefeld, 10 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. Must have been an off day for him with only 2 steals. He averaged almost 4 a game. Tate George, 9 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists. Rod Sellers. I got to get Rod Sellers in the program. I got to call Matt and have him get me hooked up with Rod. 8 points, 8 rebounds, 2 blocks. Murray Williams, 6 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist. My dad's favorite player. Can you tell how sarcastic I'm being? Dan Cerulik. Big Dan Cerulik. I would love to have Dan Cerulik on the podcast, and I've said this before, just to have my dad hear his voice and be like, oh man, maybe you feel bad about cursing Dan out over the years. And I honestly, I think, and I'm not going to go on a tangent, but I think Dan Cerulik got a lot of flack from my father because the rest of the team was so athletic and so quick and so fast, and Dan was kind of like the complete opposite. But he filled a role. I mean, he had some good games. And if you really go back into their history, he had some pretty monster games, probably against some inferior opponents. And I'm probably shortchanging him. So if you know he had a great game against a top team, please let me know. But I know Dan Cerulik was a good player. It's a joke. It's just kind of like there's always one player that you kind of throw your ire towards. And for my father, it was Dan Cerulik. And Georgetown had a good game, man. Like Alonzo Mourning, 21 points, 10 rebounds, 5 blocks. Dikembe Mutombo, 12 points, 11 rebounds, 4 blocks. Think about it. They got 9 blocks between those two guys. Crazy. I mean, this was a team that had some really good players and incredible athletes. And what was crazy is that press just really caused so much havoc in the Big East that year. And so this game still, it was a classic Big East battle featuring physical play. What's interesting to me about the Big East that year, and I think it came back to bite the Huskies in the butt when it came time for the NCAA tournament. The Big East did you could change rules like for Big East play and really for conference play, and they did a 6 foul prototype, if you will, right? Let's try it. They've done that in the past with shot clocks and different things, and the Big East did some trickeration with their fouls. So Jim Calhoun imploring this play in putting this press in really had a crazy advantage over teams because if they got 3 or 4 fouls, it didn't matter because you had 6 versus 5. So it changed the way the game was played for this UConn Huskies squad. So it was such a significant win for UConn, marking their emergence as a top-tier program, as we talked about. Just absolutely incredible over a highly ranked Georgetown team. I think they were 4th in the country at that time. And really, I think it gave them the confidence to say, look, we can beat the best teams in the country. There's no more like Cinderella. There's no more underdog team. We're here. We've arrived. So they established themselves as a absolute powerhouse in college basketball. Just wanted to say thank you for making Locked On UConn your first listen of the day. But for the second listen of the day, enjoy Locked On College Football podcast. Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for exciting season on the gridiron with discussions on the upcoming season and the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, including conference realignment, the transfer portal, NIL, new college football, expanded playoffs, and more. Locked On College Football is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And for those of you who have not heard this yet, we are doing a Locked On UConn Football Friday edition starting August 16th. We are going to tape a few shows to make sure that you guys are up to date on all the UConn football that is coming your way. Starting August 31st is the opening game at Maryland, and then the opening game at the Rent on September 7th against Merrimack. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. Also, for those of you who don't know, we are going to be giving away tickets for the opening game at the Rent. Our boy Big Larry is donating his 2 tickets and maybe some other stuff for the basketball season. So stay tuned for that. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked in, stay connected, make sure your toughness meter is always rising. And as always, go Huskies.